All right, let's talk about something that trips up so many English learners. What's the real difference between saying something was done on purpose versus deliberately? You are definitely not alone if you've wondered this. And today, we're going to dive right into a fantastic question from one of you to clear up all the confusion around these super similar words.
Okay, so here's the game plan. We're going to start with the question itself, then break down the most casual option, on purpose. After that, we'll get into the more formal ones, deliberately and intentionally. We've even got a bonus word for you, and we'll wrap it all up with a role play so you can see how it all works in action. And of course, we'll finish with the key takeaway.
All right, section 1. Let's kick things off with the question that actually sparked this whole explainer. I'm willing to bet a lot of you have had this exact same question.
So this came from a viewer on our YouTube channel. I would like to know how to tell deliberately, on purpose, and intentionally apart. And you know what? It is such a good question because, yeah, at their core, they all mean not an accident. But they each have a slightly different feel, a different flavor, and that's what we're going to get into.
You know, there's a great English expression for this, splitting hairs, and that is exactly what we're doing today. We are looking at some really tiny differences. But, and this is important, the good news is you really can't go that wrong. People will almost always know what you mean. The goal here is just to help you pick the most precise word to make you sound that much more fluent.
Okay, let's move on. We'll start with the one you probably hear the most in day-to-day life. Okay, so on purpose. The easiest way to think about this is that it's just the direct opposite of by accident. Something was either an accident or it was on purpose. It's the one you'll use in just casual, everyday chats.
Yeah, this is a perfect example. He hit his sister on purpose. You can almost hear a little kid shouting that, right? Mom, he did it on purpose. And that kind of tells you everything. It's really common in informal situations, but because of that, it can sometimes sound a bit juvenile.
Now here's something really interesting. While on purpose is super casual, you can instantly make it sound more formal just by changing it to one word, purposefully. So saying something like, he purposefully ignored the email sounds a lot more elevated, more professional than saying he ignored the email on purpose. Okay, let's level up. Now we're going to look at the two words that add this layer of formality, a layer of thoughtfulness to what you're saying. So deliberately. This word implies there was some thought behind the action. It wasn't just not an accident. It was a conscious choice. You could almost feel a plan or some kind of careful consideration happening behind the scenes.
This example is perfect. He deliberately waited until his boss was in a good mood to tell her the bad news. You can totally see the strategy, right? There was a thought process. He planned it. On purpose, it wouldn't quite capture that same level of strategic thinking.
Okay, and then we have intentionally. Now this one is super similar to deliberately. They're practically cousins. It also implies that something was thought through, but intentionally often has this extra focus on a specific goal or outcome.
So in this sentence, we intentionally waited until he left to start the meeting. There was a clear goal. What was the goal? To have the meeting without him there. The action, waiting, was done with that specific intention. Make sense, right?
And here's a great way to see it all at a glance. You've got on purpose, which is your casual, everyday choice, the opposite of accidental. Then you have deliberately and intentionally, which are both more formal. Just remember, deliberately focuses on the conscious plan and intentionally focuses a bit more on the goal.
All right, time for a little bonus word. If you really want to expand your vocabulary, here's one more that takes this whole idea of a thoughtful action to another level.
So the word is calculated, and you have to be a little careful with this one because it can be neutral or kind of negative. Taking a calculated risk is a good thing. It means you've thought it through, you've weighed the options, but calling a person calculating? Oof, that's not a compliment. That means they're sneaky, maybe even manipulative.
Okay, so we've covered the theory. Now let's put it all into action. Let's listen in on a quick role play between two sisters who are planning a party. You'll hear how these words pop up in a totally natural conversation.
So the first sister says, I deliberately made the time on the invite 2:30. She uses deliberately because, it was a plan. She thought about her friend Tyler always being late and came up with a little strategy. Classic.
And then sister 2 responds, good idea. It seems like he arrives late on purpose. See how that's more casual? She's just saying, hey, this isn't an accident. It's just a conversational observation.
Then, talking about something else, she says, I was intentionally waiting to talk to you about that. Now, why intentionally? Because she had a specific goal in mind for waiting. She wanted to figure out the budget first. The action was directly tied to her intention.
And to wrap it up, the first sister says, I think we can get the fancier option. It's a calculated risk. She's using our bonus word. It means she's thought it through, she's weighed the pros and cons of spending more money, and decided it's a smart gamble.
All right, so after all of that, after splitting all those hairs, what's the big idea? What's the most important thing to walk away with?
Here it is. Yes, on purpose is casual. Deliberately and intentionally are more formal and show more thought. And yeah, using different words makes you sound more interesting. But, and this is the big one, don't ever let searching for the perfect word get in the way of just speaking. Connection is what matters most. It's always, always better to say something than to stay silent because you're worried about the perfect word choice.
So which one of these words are you going to try to use this week? Seriously, give it a shot. That was a fantastic question, and I really hope this helps you feel more confident using all of them. Thanks so much for tuning in to This Explainer.
Got it! What's up? Catch up! Aha!